Hi, everyone, and welcome to Astro Kara. I'm Kara. I want to talk to you today about the Sagittarius full moon that's coming up in a couple of days from the day that I'm recording it. It will be May 23rd, 2024. The sun and moon in the axis of Sagittarius and Gemini, 2 degrees 55 minutes at 6:35 a.m. here in Phoenix, Arizona, where I am. So I'm going to pull up the chart and talk to you about what's happening. There's a lot going on. So I wanted to start with a song because most of you know, if you've been watching me for a while, that song lyrics are important to me. Music is very important to me, and it speaks to a lot of things, and it helps me tell my stories. So there's a particular line in a song that is sticking out for me with this lunation. The song is called Wonderful Life, and it's by Bring Me the Horizon. It's not the song necessarily specifically that is making me think of what's happening in this lunation, but it's actually a line from that song. Just 5 words. Domesticated, still a little feral is part of the line. And that's what I want to call this Sagittarius full moon. And I'll talk a little bit about why I'm saying that here in a moment. The line right after that says, "Don't you know to chew with your mouth closed?" So put that together. I'm going to say it again. Domesticated, still a little feral. Don't you know to chew with your mouth closed? So when I hear that line, it always speaks to me because that's how I feel. I live my life. I am domesticated, but definitely still a little feral in many ways. But just the idea of, don't you know to chew with your mouth closed? Where did we learn that? Where did we learn anything that we've been conditioned by? How to behave, how to have manners, what decorum and etiquette are in certain social situations. Who taught us those things? Where are the unwritten rules in society? Where do we learn that? Through media or through peer groups, through schools, any of our institutions, and then, of course, through our families. So thinking about conditioning, that's really where I want to start, because the Sagittarius archetype, which is where the moon is, so the moon is highlighted in this area. It's reflecting the sun in Gemini. So I want to talk a little bit about those archetypes. When I think of Sagittarius, we think of the ruler, Jupiter. And I mentioned this, I think, in my last video, where we talk a lot about Jupiter being the explorer and being the one that expands and the one who brings benefic things or benefit to us, abundance, things like that. And those are not incorrect. But the part that I really want to focus on that I feel gets left out a lot of times is Sagittarius being natural law and being the closest thing to natural. When we are embodying our Sagittarius energy, when we are embodying and evolving our Jupiter in our chart, we are evolving the thing that is most natural to us wherever it sits for us. And so this lunation with the moon in Sagittarius, I feel, is bringing that to the forefront. And so then I'll go to Jupiter and look what's happening with that, because we would say that that is the ruler of the lunation. So Jupiter is sitting here at 29 degrees of Taurus, just getting ready to move into Gemini. A lot of astrologers are talking about that. We've kind of been looking forward to this for the last year, or at least recently, because it's taken a year to get here. But there's a lot of things that I feel are important about Jupiter being at this last degree of Taurus, especially with Venus being right there with it. Venus being what we would say is the ruler of Taurus. So these two energetic signatures together is very important. They are both also now in a new phase to Uranus. So where are we now beginning to see ourselves in a new way? The way that we believed we had to behave, the way that we believed we had to enact ourselves or just simply be. What are those belief patterns that were either given to us or we adopted somehow, or they were unwritten, that are now no longer a part of who we are? And with Venus, how are we now valuing ourselves? How are we connecting to what we need emotionally most naturally? These two at this end degree are telling us that there's an ending to a cycle. Yet it's also in a new phase, being that there's a new thing emerging. We aren't necessarily fully aware of what this new thing is yet, because it's still brand new. It will become more clearer as Venus moves away from Jupiter, and then as Venus and Jupiter together move away from Uranus. The point I want to make, though, is when we consider all the ways that we've been conditioned, all the ways that we've been led to believe certain things about ourselves, whatever we were taught meant that we had some sort of worth or value, we need to really look at them. And that's what I talked about in my Taurus new moon video, or my Substack, about it being a time of reflection, very much about reflecting on these belief patterns. What is it that we have been taught to believe about the way we have to be? And do those align with us anymore? Is that true for you? Is that true for who you are now? And how does that play into how you value yourself? And when I say value yourself, I mean in every way. If you don't feel that you have value, and this is not something that is always readily most conscious, sometimes these are very, very unconscious thoughts and emotions and presence that's within us that we get triggered into sometimes, where we may logically think, okay, well, of course I know I have value. I know that I'm good at this or I'm good at that. But underneath the surface, there's some type of pattern that has taught us to think less of ourselves. And this is what is being brought up. This is what is being laid in front of us right now to be reconsidered. So with the moon and the sun being at 2 degrees, it's also significant that Pluto is sitting at 2 degrees. 2 degrees Aquarius, it's now in its retrograde form, and it's making connection to the sun and the moon in significant ways. It's sextile the moon and trine the sun. Both of these patterns in evolutionary astrology speak to a last quarter phase. The last quarter phase carries Aquarian energy. Aquarius is where Pluto sits. So let's talk about what Aquarian energy feels like, or what its intention is. It is meant to accelerate our experiences. It can feel somewhat traumatic at times, somewhat shocking, because it can take us from the present moment and move us into a new time. Sometimes that is the future. Sometimes that is the past. A lot of times we get triggered into the past because that's where our initial hurt happened. But sometimes it gives us glimpses of a future. Glimpses of a future if we continue the path that we're on, or glimpses of the future of a path that we may take, where our life could be if we make changes now. And so this energy is very much about breaking apart past conditioning. It's about understanding you at an individual level. So if the goal, the intent, is to individuate, meaning accept and move within the most individual sense of yourself, I think the only way we can get to that is by understanding what is natural for me. What is most natural of a flow for you to be in? What feels right for you? What is your own personal truth? This is Jupiter. This is Sagittarius. And then Venus. What are your emotional needs? How many times have we experienced our own emotional needs not being met? Primarily in childhood. For whatever reason, because our parents were potentially emotionally immature, or they had their own trauma to deal with. And for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. If we have experienced not having our emotional needs met, our most basic needs, then we often learn that either they're not important, they're not worthwhile. And so we either learn to manipulate in order to get what we want, to get what we need, because it's a need, right? I said want, but I'm talking about needs here. Or we try to control because that's the only way we know how to get our needs met. Or we disassociate because it's too painful to be continually let down. So many of us don't even know how to connect to those emotional needs, don't know how to connect to what it feels like in our bodies. When we start to feel whatever it is uncomfortable within our bodies, we tend to try to run away, we disassociate, we move to substances, we do anything to distract ourselves from really having to feel those uncomfortable feelings. And that is where I would say the work is. Learning to get back to that space where you can sit with yourself, sit with those emotions, work through them, and then know how to meet them for yourself. This energy is here to help us do that, is to give us this focused time of reflection. But then there's still this push. It's this acceleration of here's a thing that needs to be done, and it's not going to let up. So what is helping us? What is supporting us in that? We have Mars in Aries. Mars is our courage. It's our action. It's our drive. And it's sitting with the North Node. We've already had the conjunction. Now they're starting to separate. Mars is helping us to have the courage to respond to these old patterns in new ways. Let me say that again. Respond to old patterns in new ways. If we've always done what we've always done, we can't expect different results. We are the change agents. You are the change agent in your own life. That's also Mars, helping you to recognize that you have agency. You have the ability to make changes for yourself. It's simple. It's not often easy. Very often it's not easy. And we need support. And so that's where our groups are available, hopefully, our safe spaces. We know who we can trust to help us work that out. I'd like to take us into a little meditation, but I first want you to imagine that you have been walking around in life. Everywhere you go, you've been carrying a backpack full of very heavy rocks, and it has only gotten heavier as you've gotten older. So as we go into this meditation, I want to have that image in mind. The weight, the bulkiness, the uncomfortableness of carrying around this backpack of rocks. So let's get comfortable and begin to focus on your breathing. With each inhale, breathe in a little deeper. And as you exhale, even give a little sigh. Begin to release the tension in your jaw, from your shoulders. Sink into where you're sitting and feel fully supported by the surface you're sitting on. Remind your body that you are safe and you can relax. And as we go into the mind's eye, where we have held the image of the backpack filled with rocks, we're going to open up the backpack and take one out. It's got words on it. What does yours say? These are heavy images, heavy, uncomfortable words. It might look something like, "You're too loud. Settle down." It might look like, "Be seen and not heard. Sit still. Look pretty. Why would you say something like that? Why would you do something like that? Don't you know better?" What does that rock mean for you? Is it true for you? Are you too loud? Are you too much? Are you too emotional? I would argue no. This was something that was given to you by someone else. Someone else's belief about you. And now it's time to give it back. Take that rock and drop it. Or maybe throw it or bury it. What feels right for you? The symbolism is in letting it go. Let's take out another rock, maybe a heavier one. Maybe this one says something like, "You're worthless. You'll never amount to anything. You should have never been born. You'll always be a failure." That's just not true. And it doesn't belong to you. And it's time to let it go. Drop it, throw it, bury it. Take some time and continue to pull out more of those rocks. Meditate on what they say and remind yourself that that is not your truth. Remind yourself what your truth is. You are human. You are fallible. You are real. You are good. You get to choose what is true for you. The heaviness that you feel may require some time in processing. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace. And until next time, take care of you.